So I just want to make sure you're trusting your instincts, that you trust your gut. And I have a little story, well, two stories actually, about a couple of times when I trusted my gut. A couple weeks ago, we had some friends of my wife's sister here who came from Belgium. And they were very lovely people. We had a great time. They were here about 5 days, but they didn't speak immaculate English. And of course, they didn't know anything about the lay of the land here. So when they got here, one of the first things they told me was that they had left their laptop in the cab from the airport. I asked them a few questions right away. First, do you have the receipt? That usually has the medallion number on it. No, we didn't get a receipt. Well, do you happen to know the medallion number? No, the driver's name was Muhammad. I was like, well, there's a lot of people in this city named Muhammad. Does the laptop have a password? Is it password protected? No. Okay. Well, that means that the new owner is going to get right in and be able to use it with no problem. Does it have any sort of geolocation, like Find My Mac or something like that? Nope, no geolocation. We're in a pretty bad place. So I was like, okay. Yeah, I jumped into action. I really didn't feel like it. I hop on the internet and I start searching around. So I call 311 and I ask them and they give me some ideas. And then I call the Taxi and Limousine Commission. It's after hours, but I leave a message. And then I call the police precincts. I start talking to them and, what would happen. I did about all I could do. The next day the phone rings. It's the Taxi and Limousine Commission. They ask, where was the ride from and to? And I said, well, it was from Kennedy Airport, and it was to my address, and I give them the address. And she says, okay. And I said, of course, there's no medallion number, no receipt, no name, no geolocation, no nothing. She says, let me work on it. So she goes away and calls back a couple of hours later and says, I found your laptop. And it turns out that they geolocated where the cab was and came to. And of course, I had pretty much the exact time of the ride. So in a couple days, we had that back, even though there was no intellectual reason why I would think it should. In the normal circumstances, it would just be like, forget it, it's not coming back. I just had this feeling it was coming back. I knew we were going to get it back. It was just my instinct. You would think, well, it's a city of 8 million people, and how is this possible? And, I came here in the 80s. They didn't have any geolocation or anything. That would have been gone. Of course, people in the 80s would have been like, what's a computer? But that's another thing. Anyway, that was really something where I was like, man, that was great that I just trusted my instincts, and this turned out this way. But this video is not about that story. It's about another story. The other story starts with a friend of ours who is a technician who comes and works in my studio sometimes. And he is old school. He loves what he does. He wants to do the greatest job. We have similar likes and dislikes in music. We talk a lot. Just a lot of fun and really great to know him. I've known him for 15 years. And over that time, we've developed a friendship, but I've never been to his house or anything. Now, he is someone who is getting up there in years, and he's not in an ideal weight, and he walks with a cane. And so, he has various health challenges. We had a job where we had to have parts fabricated for an instrument. Took the parts out, sent them to be fabricated, and they were due to come back on Wednesday of the following week. Tuesday, there's a phone call from him, 2 phone calls, as a matter of fact, one right after the other. And I thought, that's kind of weird. Usually he leaves a message, or, why didn't he text? And he's not on social media, so there's really no way to figure out or get in touch with him or find out who his other friends are or whatever. I thought, that's weird, but, didn't think too much of it. But that was an instinct, right? And so then next day I call him. It rings, it rings, it rings. Then the answering machine picks up. Day after that, I call him. It rings, it rings, and rings. The answering machine picks up. And I'm leaving messages every time. So then the next day I call, no ring, straight to the message machine. Day after that I call, no ring, straight to the message machine. So I'm starting to think this is pretty strange. So I just write a text to him and I say, hey man, not to worry about this job we're doing right now, but just want to know you're okay. Could you call or text or something? Just let me know real quick everything's all right. 2 minutes later, the phone rings and it's him. So I pick it up and he says, can you come get your parts? And I was like, okay, because I do know that he lives over yonder somewhere. He doesn't live in the city, not even in the 5 boroughs, so it's not going to be a public transportation thing. It's to be the kind of thing where I take public transportation as far as I can, then I'm going to have to get an Uber. But, he sounds a little weird to me, so I'm like, okay, I will do that. What's your address? And he's like, it's 75, or is it 57, he doesn't know his address, right? So I said, well, what town is it in? He was like, I think maybe it's Elgin, or it's, he's searching for what town it's in. And he's like, well, you come up over the hill and then you go down and pass the gas station and then take a left and then whatever. I'm like, I've never been there, man. I don't know. I don't know where you live. The landmarks don't help me at all. So then I say, you don't sound good. What's going on? And he says, a couple days ago, I just kind of had a cold and it just got worse. And now I don't feel so great. And then he hangs up. So I think to myself, well, should I call him back? Should I ask him if I should send an ambulance? I decided not to do that because I know him well enough. He's going to say, no, I'm fine. And then I would have to respect that. We were talking about his daughter last time he was here. And so I thought if I could get in touch with the daughter. I didn't want to call him back because I knew he was going to say, oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. So I started calling around to different people to see if we could figure out who his daughter was. So finally I call a buddy of mine. His wife was a client. She hunts the daughter down. And the daughter goes, gets him, and they go to the emergency room. The first time the ambulance came, he sent them away. So he definitely would have sent me away on the phone, I think. So it turns out that he had had a stroke, and that stroke happened 8 days before he was admitted to the hospital, they think. That is pretty sobering. And the weird part is that I thought to myself, back to this thing about the taxi, and I thought, God, it's so much of a pain. I don't get on the phone and do whatever. I'm not that guy. I'm not a guy who calls everybody. And I thought, I just looked at my instincts and I was like, something's really wrong here. So, it's very possible that if I hadn't called him, he would have just remained where he was until he had a much, much worse outcome. And so I'm happy about that, but I'm also here to tell you, trust your instincts. That's it for today. We're hoping for a complete recovery and, we'll keep our fingers crossed, right? Anyway, have a great day.